Kia ora, talofa namaste, haere mai, and welcome to the Niche Case. This is our big old podcast coming at you on a Tuesday, and we are here to do some Aotearoa sporting discussion. A little chit-chat, yippity-yap about Kiwi sporting matters revolving around the big four sports that we cover the mostest. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to set the scene with a couple of ideas, maybe even some questions across each of these four major sports that we do cover, starting with the Warriors of Aotearoa, because it was a tough weekend for the wrestling department, the grappling, the jiu-jitsu. The Warriors, for the second week in a row, dominated physically by their opposition. Another loss. We'll talk about that later. Against the Broncos, not much wrestling was on show. The only wrestling, grappling that we saw from the Warriors against the Broncos was penalized. And that's usually the case when you're losing the collision, then your wrestling becomes trying to more desperate, then you start to get penalized, then the snowball of poo starts to roll down the hill. And that's what we saw. At the same time, the wrestling coach, Karapani, was submitted in the UFC. So the coach for the wrestling department was submitted, and the Warriors wrestling was almost non-existent. So it was a tough weekend for the old Warriors grappling department. I need to get your assessment on this one as well, because we've had the Club World Cup, the Football Club World Cup. And now we've got the Rex, the T-Rex, Wrexham coming to Aotearoa. And I need to, because I can feel it in my loins, the avant-garde nature of myself, the rebel within me. I'm about ready to shout from the rooftops, I do not care about Wrexham. And I'm actually just going to say it. I do not care about Wrexham. But we are being told that Wrexham coming to Aotearoa is really important. So you're the football extraordinaire in the niche case garage. I was about to say offices, but we're in the garage. We're in the shed. So that's just what it is. What is more relevant to me as an observer of Kiwi football? Auckland City in the Club World Cup or Wrexham? Wrexham coming to Aotearoa for a little piss take.
Yeah, none of that office stuff. I would say that seeing as Auckland City they have the Club World Cup, we're playing competitive games with, actual it was part of an actual competition, albeit a brand new competition, but some pretty tasty paychecks on the line. It's been including little, not just win bonuses, but apparently there was a draw bonus for their game, which is nice. That's good stuff. Bringing back a bit of currency. So compare that to Wrexham's pre-season friendly against the Wellington Phoenix about 2 months after the A-League finished, but also about a month before they actually get into proper preseason again. So they're not this is as deep into the offseason as they could possibly be. Nothing on the line, just a friendly game, just an exhibition game, barely even a friendly game. Wrexham have no New Zealanders in their squad, at least now. Maybe they'll do what a lot of first 15 teams do, with preseason trip to Tonga, and then you come back with an extra 6 players or something like that. Maybe they'll do that to bring back a few Kiwis with Wrexham afterwards, but right now, no. And also the Wellington Phoenix themselves, it's not like that. It's not exactly bare bones, but I think we can safely say we're going to see a fair few academy players in that game, which is not a good indication of the Phoenix taking it seriously. Although on the kind of on the flip side of that actually might make that game more interesting if we're seeing a few of the fringe players used in that one instead. So I'll watch it, but I'm not going to worry about the results or anything like that. I don't think it's a very serious game, and I don't really understand the buzz about Wrexham quite as much as we hear it. Like, would people care the same if Millwall came and played here, who are a better team and who have Max Crocombe now, playing the same league but higher up? Like, would that get the same buzz, or do they have to be on the Disney Channel for people to care that much about a second division English team?
It sounds a little bit like if let's go with London Broncos, the rugby league team, if they came to New Zealand to play the Warriors early in December.
Yeah, right.
It was like, what's going on here? So I would like to apologize to the Club World Cup, to FIFA, to Auckland City for any negativity that I shared about the Club World Cup, because it is of a greater prestige, a greater honor, greater entertainment. Shout out to FIFA for paying the lads as well. All of that is better than old Wrexham coming to Aotearoa for a piss take. We'll get into a lot of cricket coming up in the show. It was like a glorious moment of alignment of my kind of hot takey ideas about Kiwi cricket being summed up and reflected by squads, the contracts, information coming out in New Zealand cricket around the Blackcaps. And I need to make a public service announcement where the Broadcasting Standards Authority are not involved, because we don't really give a shit. Kane Williamson ain't playing any more T20 cricket. But even then, he might pop up this summer, right? Like he might come around and be like, yeah, I want to play the T20 World Cup, and there's all these T20s in New Zealand this summer, so I might play some of these games. So okay, because I actually think that might be a realistic possibility. But he's not going to be at the T20 World Cup. That is either because nothing Kane Williamson has done has informed us that he wants to play T20 cricket for New Zealand. And I do not think he's good enough. He doesn't smash the ball hard enough. And we got a lot of smashes in our T20 mixer. I don't think Kane Williamson's going to play the Test series in Zimbabwe because he's busy on holiday in England. So you're going to see all these headlines. You've already seen it with the T20 squad. No Kane Williamson. All the stuff about Kane Williamson. And also shout out to the veteran Devon Conway, who was dumped from the Blackcaps squad, even though he was already on the outer of the Test team. He wasn't a first 11 ODI player. And he has been, his form has been trending in the wrong direction. So I was pretty confident about my Devon Conway feelings, even though they seem to be the exact opposite of New Zealand media and the cricketing media around the world, because Devon Conway is a veteran of 4 years of international cricketing service for New Zealand, who, I mean, he might have been averaging like 20 in his last year at Test batting. But shout out Devon Conway. Kane Williamson, we need to be prepared for minimal Kane Williamson moving forward. It's not going to be a surprise when he's not playing. It's not going to be a shock. I'm telling you right now, he probably won't play much cricket for New Zealand moving forward. He still seems to love Test cricket, but I reckon that will just mean he'll play the home summer tests. So now we've got a situation where Kane Williamson is... he's pulling all his leverage out and he's just kind of popping up where he wants to. That's cool. He deserves that honor. But it's a bit of the old fuck around to find out, because Kane Williamson might be fucking around and he might find out that he's not necessarily a first 11 T20 batter, which is all good because we've got a lot of smashes. And I've got a question for you. Who will play more cricket for New Zealand over the next year? 1st of July 2025, 1st of July 2026. Devon Conway, Kane Williamson, or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu BJJ, Bevan John Jacobs, otherwise known as Bevan Jacobs.
I had a feeling you're going to go with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus Kane Williamson there as you as you set that up, and then the Devon Conway twist came at the start. Now you got me thinking. I still think Kane Williamson will play the most of those three, but that depends. I might have to look at the schedule and see, because there's a lot of T20 cricket coming up, and as you say, I think that's the stuff where because I think Williamson will try to play test matches. It's starting to look like maybe I won't get my prediction of him playing in Zimbabwe, but we don't know yet. He might just be resting for the other stuff before that. I don't know, but um, regardless, I think there's also another, like there's two key points there from what you said. One is that we have to be prepared for it, which is, yeah, whether he's there or not, we can't be surprised whenever he's not in a squad in any format really from this point moving forwards. But then the other key point that you said there, to highlight that again, which is he might actually just not be in one of he might just not be one of our best 11 T20 international players right now. You know, he might just not make that squad on merit anyway, because they prefer, I don't know, someone younger, faster, and stronger, and hits bigger sixes or whatever. There's definitely a case for that. I think his sort of like being the one guy in the top order who anchors the innings a bit in T20s has been pretty handy through the years. But there's also a case, like, if you're trying to slow down and play less international cricket, well, this is the first one you got to drop. It's the one we play the most, and it's the one where where you probably have it's the only one where you don't have an automatic hold on your spot in the team. But and I only really see Bevan Jacobs playing T20s in the next 12 months. I think down the line, certainly he could become a first 11 dude in all of those formats. But I don't know. But as I say, they play a lot of T20s coming up. I don't know how much Devon Conway will see though at the same time. So I'm still going to go with Kane Williamson in that for the most, but it might have to be like the most days of cricket rather than the most games of cricket to make sure we're counting those test matches of given the test match bump a little bit there with the longer formats. But yeah, we'll see. Because I don't think there's an easy answer to that question.
I do. It's Bevan Jacobs.
You reckon?
Yeah. Kane
Is
Williamson.
that just purely on T20s, or you reckon he's breaking into the ODIs this year as well? I mean, he might.
He'll play most of his games over the next year will be T20s. Some of them will be ODIs, and then I still think I finished my Blackcaps T20 squad breakdown for the Tri-Series in Africa, the Trilateral Series, otherwise known as a Tri-Series. Bilateral Series, otherwise known as a Cricket Series. My last line in that was Bevan Jacobs might play Test cricket within a year. So I don't think that's far off, but I think Bevan Jacobs is going to play his way into a first 11 status in T20s, probably in ODIs, and I mean, he's averaging 50 after his first few games of Plunket Shield. So I do think he'll play Tests. And if he's playing a lot of T20 cricket, then you don't really need the old DC. You don't really need the Kane dubs. And I want to be wrong here. I want to be wrong about Kane Williamson. Not too fussed about Devon Conway. But I just have this feeling we're not going to see a whole lot of Kane Williamson. We're not going to see a whole lot of Devon Conway. And I think we are preparing to see a lot more of Bevan Jacobs. So I'm definitely in the Bevan Jacobs camp. One last question. Who is better at their NBA job? Steven Adams or Sean Marks? Steven Adams, kind of a culture setter, NBA center, fantastic screener, sneaky playmaker, fantastic rebounder. Awesome at his job, I'd say, Steven Adams. Sean Marks, GM of the Brooklyn Nets. Who is better at their job? Steven Adams or Sean Marks? Obviously, Sean Marks is a Kiwi. We know Steven Adams is a Kiwi. So which New Zealand representative in the NBA is better at their job right now?
Well, Steven Adams is the best at his job at but he's the best at his job. There's no one who does what Steven Adams does better than how Steven Adams does it. You know, it's not necessarily the well, it's obviously not the score 30 points in a game type guy, but he's the guy who supports the guy who scores 30 points in a game. He's the guy that all the superstars like to play with and hate to play against, and he's the one who makes everyone better around them. And he's a leader on the court. He's a leader off the court. He sets a tone defensively. He sets a tone offensively with his screen game, with the offensive rebounding, all that good stuff. Everyone loves him as a dude as well. Like there's no one who does like NBA role player better than what Steven Adams does. There's no negatives to what he offers as long as you put him in the right situation. Which is why we've still never seen him hoofing up 3-pointers, which is an interesting thing about watching the next, like the junior version of Steven Adams, Julius Halefenor, playing for the under-19s, is he attempted a 3-pointer from the top of the key in one of those games. So might come back around to that when we talk about that game later on, because he gets compared to Steven Adams a lot, but I think there's a few key differences there, exciting ones too. But yeah, so Sean Marks can't win this battle. The best he can do is be tied. And to tie that battle, he would have to be the best GM in the league. And I don't think he's the best GM in the league. But I do think he's doing some nice work again. He's got back into the mode where he was at the start of his Brooklyn Nets career, where he didn't have anything to work with. And it's like, how are you going to turn this terrible, doomed franchise around? And he just made smart little move after smart little move, and nothing big, nothing flashy, just slowly accrued good players and sneaky draft picks, and made good use of those draft picks, and built it up to where suddenly the Brooklyn Nets are the team that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and James Harden all want to play for. Then he ripped up the script and went and got Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden, and that didn't go so well, and he spent a few years looking like a very bad GM. But just sneakily in the last probably year or two, he's gotten back to what he was doing at the start, where it's like, okay, you kind of spoiled things there. You went away from the pattern you were following in the first place in order to go all in on this NBA superstar culture stuff. All right, that didn't work. But he is building them back up to a similar spot where they were beforehand. They just became well, I think about a year ago, they didn't even have their own 2025 first round draft pick. Somehow they ended up at the actual 2025 NBA draft first round with 5 picks, and they used all of them. So he's done some good, like Mikal Bridges, that trade was a big part of that. He's managed to somehow become the first general manager in NBA history to use, he didn't trade any of them, he used them all. He drafted 5 first round players. All of 4 of them international players, all of them, well, I think 4 of them as well, sort of guards with questionable shooting but decent athleticism. So it's very much similar to what the OKC Thunder always do, is like get those project players that everyone else is sleeping on for whatever reason. A couple of them are Israeli, which is weird in this particular moment of history, but he's accruing a little bit of a bag to work with again. So he's not as good as his job as Steven Adams is at his job, but Sean Marks is coming back around again. He's acting like Sean Marks, which is good. He's just got very disheartening when he turned up, he did everything the way you'd expect a Kiwi GM to do, like not cutting any corners, all about the right attitude. Let's build a culture and focus on development and all this stuff, and then absolutely shredded that plan to go in the opposite direction. That was very disheartening, but he's back to the original plan now and it's working a lot better. Hopefully. We'll see, because they actually still owe a lot of draft picks for that James Harden trade. So I think they can afford to tank next year, which they will, because they've got a lot of project players, so they're not going to be any good. They still have their own draft pick next year. They might want to get good after that, though, because that's when they start owing a bunch of draft picks to Houston. But if they owe them to Houston, well, Steven Adams has a 3-year contract with Houston, so he's going to start benefiting from that, even if Sean Marks doesn't. So one way or another, the Kiwi basketball and fraternity still wins.
Yeah, I think you've got a heavy dose of Aotearoa bias in your assessment of Sean Marks.
Of course.
Because that seems to divert away from the general consensus coming out of the big USA, and I would like to make a statement on behalf of the nifty niche cache, we are pro peace. Peace and love, positive energy to all around the world. And that even goes, we express peace, love, gratitude, and forgiveness for the folks who just want to kill other people, whether it be through wars, whether it be through blatant bullying and just evil deeds. We rise above it, and we're all about peace, love, and positivity. So, the combination of some of his draft selections, that kind of makes me want to boycott old Sean Marks. But I don't know, it'd be nice if he won some games at some point. You know, that would be really good as well, because, I mean, shout out to America. They love to lose. In the old American sports competitions, they do love to lose. Oh, you know, our best player got injured. We're just gonna lose. Oh, we're going nowhere right now. We're just going to lose. So we just would rather lose than try and compete. Like, if you told an NRL team, if you told the Warriors, right? And this is this is something that we'll get deeper into in a jiffy. I kind of feel like maybe Luke Metcalf got a little bit overrated in recent weeks. But
I was thinking of asking you that exact question later on when we talked about that injury. So
it feels like that might be just too much of a hot take. But if you told the Warriors, okay, Luke Metcalf's injured, you're just going to give up. That's just what you're going to do. You're just going to give up and prepare for next year. That is ridiculous. No matter how shit your NRL team is, every NRL team has the ambition, has the intention, the focus of going out and winning. So shout out to America. They love a war. They love funding wars. They love supporting wars. And they generally love to kill people in a variety of ways, the old America. And they also love to lose. So big up America. And as we switch up the tone and get into some mindfulness, I've heard about Voom. Have you heard much about Voom?
Voom? The band Voom?
The band Voom?
Yeah, I know the band Voom. Kiwi band. Love that band. Great band.
I've heard some of the shout out to BFM, the best radio station in Aotearoa. Voom, big on BFM 95, BFM. All other radio stations. Shit. They play a lot of Voom. I was like, wow, this Voom band's pretty cool. And then one day, as I was like trying to relax myself in the car in angelic ways, you know, just a long walk, deep breathing, that type of thing, the song comes on the radio, Voom, relax. It's just basically relax deeply. Just relax. It's a bit of a tune. You can look it up on YouTube, and if you do look it up on YouTube, you'll see Voom, relax, 1998. Now, this video, Relax, big mindfulness tune. I think they're going up and down Newmarket back in 1998. And here I was thinking Voom was this modern band. They got the bangers from the 90s as well. So if you do love a bit of musical jam, check out Voom, Relax, because that will just set you down. Relax deeply, feel it in your body, relax your belly, relax your face, and just try to relax, because these are frantic, hectic times that we live in. But I didn't know Voom were so old. I didn't know they were like an old school band. So what do you know about Voom?
I know they got a very good new album out, which is maybe why they feel like a current band. But I knew they've been around for a little while. They're sort of one of those kind of like poppy rock type bands, like just bright, sharp, short, guitar-y, kind of catchy, melodic kind of stuff. But then with that like indie kind of attitude too, where it's like they're throwing a bit of experimentation. So like good fun stuff. I think what did I can't remember if it was like Phaser Days or something like that. They cut a song with them her a couple years ago, which I think is where I came to know Voom a lot better. And then as I say, they've dropped a couple singles in the last couple years, and then this year they have a big new album out, which is very good, and which I was already planning on even before you mentioned that. I had it written down on a long list here. Something good is happening. That's the name of the album for my when we get around to doing the next version of the album jukebox, that'll be on there. I already had that one jotted down. So yeah, great Kiwi band, that one.
A similar old school track that I have heard is from the Ponsonby DCs. G'day, mate. Now,
Great title.
there's nothing. Let's keep it a full steak and cheese pie here. There's nothing cool about Ponsonby, but the "G'day, mate," yeah, mate, nah, mate. It's a fantastic song, and it's from 1985. It is an absolute banger. So if you do want another banger to tune in from the old school files, Ponsonby DC's "G'day, mate." And it's just a repetition of some Kiwi slang. And while on the topic,
Is that DC like Washington DC, Ponsonby DCC? Is that I guess that's the joke of the name, isn't it? Is to make it sound like a fancy American city, but it's just Ponsonby.
yeah, as DC's plural, but it's the
The DCs,
possessive,
right?
It's the possessive one, the Washington DC thingamajig S.
With the little apostrophe.
Yeah, that's the one. That's what they
Right,
call
yeah.
it on the streets.
Gotcha.
And another one,
The streets of Ponsonby, that's what they call it.
yeah,
Ponsonby, the Ponsonby apostrophe.
this surprised me, and I think we would have talked about it at the time, but I need to go back and remind folks because you might have played the game. What's the time, Mr. Wolf? But there's an absolute banger of a tune. What's the time, Mr. Wolf? That apparently was on the Once Were Warriors soundtrack.
Yeah, I was just gonna say soundtrack of Once Warriors.
And
They
it's
were singing it in the car.
the band South Side of Bombay. So we're hitting some extremes here. We're going the old Cool Cats from Ponsonby, and then we're going South Side of Bombay. What's the time, Mr. Wolf? Because unless you've watched Once Were Warriors and listened to the soundtrack over and over again, like, shout out to a legendary Kiwi movie, but I haven't seen Once Were Warriors too many times.
It's not a movie you want to rewatch obsessively. It's pretty fucking dark.
But if you've heard the song "What's the Time, Mr. Wolf," you may not assume that that's just like some Kiwi tunes, but it is, and it's a fantastic song. So shout outs to some old school Kiwi bangers. Always keeping an open mind and open ears for some bangers, because let's be honest, most of the best music was made before 2010.
Maybe. There's a lot of music made at all times in history. You just got to know how to filter what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but most of the new music is a little bit underwhelmed.
Well, that's a 15-year period as well. So we got a 100-year period before that. Oh, not quite. I don't know when they invented recording and selling music, but that stacks up for the law of averages too, right? You got like 80 plus years of stuff. There's more likely to be good stuff in there than there is in the 15 years since, but it is getting harder and harder. Like there's a thing I've been seeing people whinging about is there's like an AI band on Spotify which has like 500,000 daily streams or something. Like that's not real. It's just getting harder and harder to filter through the to apply those filters. But there's good stuff there. Voom put out a new album, so
Yeah. I think I'm skewed by hip hop, because there isn't a whole lot of new hip hop that really, really excites me. Even like Aotearoa flavor, if I want to listen to some new Aotearoa music, to be honest, I want to listen to some guitar music. I want to listen to some roots reggae music. I'm trying to listen to some dub music. Like the new kind of hip hop doesn't really get me up and going, get me jigging and jiving. Whereas some fresh Voom, some fresh Phaser Days, some fresh Balu Brigada, throw some other names at me, some Troy Kingy, some Marlon Williams, all that stuff we've talked about. Anyone else you want to throw it at me?
We'll be here all day doing that, but yeah, it's been plenty of decent stuff.
Obviously, Fat Freddy's dropped. They the new album within the last year as well.
Yeah,
but that's kind of my the resistance, the static with getting another album jukebox done. Because I don't actually I haven't actually listened to a lot of new albums in that way. Because when I'm doing my work, then I might chuck on some jazz, some Manu Chao, or some just like quirky tunes to get me through. But we'll try and get another album jukebox done in the next month or so. We'll see how we go. But on the back of Voom, Relax, and some waffle, can you throw some mindfulness at me?
Well, this works out nicely for us having a bit of creative block about getting around to our album jukebox, because the one I had written down here is from Plato, the man himself, Mr. Plato. He wrote The Republic. Going way back in history for this one, his quote is that the beginning is the most important part of the work. In other words, just get started. Just get the project underway, and then it all flows from there.
It's literally like, we're not big time writers. Like, we just type out a few words about New Zealand sport. We're not writing books or anything yet.
Yeah.
That is that is something I try to remind myself when I am struggling, because it's like either you have 10 coffees and start to fritz out and then you don't actually get done what you want to do, or you just start typing and then the flow starts to come at you. But it's, for some reason, there is that static in just starting. But 8 out of 10, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, 8 out of 10 in any position on the rugby league field, 8 out of 10 times, if you just start, then you're in flow, then you're in motion.
And even if you don't like what you start with, like, you come back and fix it in the edit. You can, it might well evolve into something other than what you expected it to be as well, which is also, that's just a little bit of alchemy that doesn't happen otherwise. So you have to get underway. You have to start putting in a little bit of an effort to get something back at the same time. So yeah, it's always good advice. That is just, even if you're not fully feeling it, just get started, get going, and see where it takes you, because you might end up somewhere other than where you expected anyway.
Exercise is another easy example.
Definitely, 100%. The first step is the hardest one.
Just do one press up, whatever your thing is. Just get started, have a crack, and that's all we do here at the Niche Case. We just have a crack covering Aotearoa sports to the best of our ability. The niche-case.com for all the deep dives, lots of stuff on our website published over the last few days that you can read about. So make sure you head on over to the niche-case.com. Every day, if you're a hardcore, but to be honest, we probably won't have something new there every day. So just every couple of days, if you're off the social media, bookmark it, check in. You might find something that you like. Otherwise, if you're big on the old social medias, you can have a little scroll and we'll share our work through there as well. We have our newsletter, which is the foundation, the cornerstone. Is that the lyric? The stone that the builder refused is the newsletter, the nichecase.substack.com, because that stone that the builder refused then becomes the foundational elements for our podcast discussion. So it's Monday and Thursday, lots of Aotearoa sporting information sent directly to you with all the links and all the other things that you need to know are part of that newsletter. Most of it is free. We also have a little bonus section for paid Substack subscribers and the Patreon whānau. It would be fantastic if we could get one more member of the Patreon whānau, maybe 2, maybe 3, but let's just try and get one new member of the Patreon whānau, a couple of dollars a month. That would be a big help to us doing what we love to do. Had a couple of folks, shout out to them, they have dipped out of the old Patreon whānau. So it would be nice if we could just get one member of Patreon on, one more member of the Patreon whānau, patreon.com/our niche case, because the full newsletter, paid section, free section is copied into Patreon the next day as well. You can also sign up to our free newsletter on Substack and then upgrade to a paid Substack subscription. You can hit us up on Buy Me a Coffee if you want to as well. And of course, if you're listening to this, make sure you do the good stuff for the podcasts, whether it's on YouTube, the audio platforms. just do something to help us out would be fantastic. And then you might have someone help you out as well, because that's how the world works. And we have a basketball team, the New Zealand under-19 men's basketball team, that has won 2 games, their first 2 games of the under-19 World Cup. And this is one of the best, sneakiest Kiwi sporting storylines right now. They had a win over Argentina. Then they had a win over Mali. How have you, can you sum up the 2 performances? Was there a common theme? Was there one specific dominant theme in the first game, then the second game? Just sum up these first 2 games at the under-19 Basketball World Cup, because New Zealand's pretty good at basketball.
We are pretty good at basketball, and this team might be better than most, possibly better than any age grade team we've ever sent to one of these type of FIBA tournaments. I think the dog's barking in the background. Excuse them. Must be mailman time. This, because we had, it got a little, I think it's one of those things when a team goes off to an under-17 type World Cup, no one outside the diehards from that kind of sport are really paying that much attention. But when the Junior Tall Blacks at the under-17 World Cup last year took it all the way to the semi-finals, that did get some, that got people talking. They got people outside of the basketball fraternity paying attention there to that. I don't know if as many people focused on the under-18s making the final of the Asia Cup, but that in its own way was also a very, high-achieving team there. And now we have an under-19 World Cup where you just take the best players from both of those squads and put them together, and how much more of a pedigree team can you have? So I was very excited going into this. In general, I was already excited about that based on how those 2 teams performed last year. But then since then as well, you've also had 10 of those 12 players have been playing in the NBL this season to at least some degree. And a couple of them, for example, Jackson Ball, first and foremost, kind of been dominating despite the age there. Jackson Ball's the youngest guy in this under-19s team as well, and he top scored in the first game when they beat Argentina. Didn't top score in the second game when they beat Mali, but I almost enjoyed that more because he was pulling out those spin moves, man. He was doing those little shake one way, go around, and it's swiveling on guys to get through. It was awesome stuff. The 2 guys who haven't played NBL this year are Julius Halefanoa and Oscar Goodman, who are probably the 2, they're the 2 guys that were playing in the NBA Global Academy. They've gone over to USA colleges early, although they haven't really played much. Goodman redshirted his first year, and Halefanoa got injured after 6 games, so he didn't, neither of them have played a lot of basketball recently, and I think you did see that in the first game as those 2 were a little bit rusty, despite being the sort of the starriest, brightest prospects in this team. But that's the point about this team, is it's not about 2 guys. So what you saw in the first half against Argentina, that was the Tama Isaac show. He was awesome. He set them up. They started off in a 13-0 hole, and then Tama Isaac surged them back into contention before Jackson Ball took over in the second half. Against Mali, the first half was all about Hayden Jones. He was absolutely fantastic there, the buzzer beater at the end, but he was knocking down 3-pointers from all over the place. And in the second half, it was much more a defensive grind where you started to see the interior presence of Julius Halefanoa, Carter Hotboy taking over. So 2 games, 2 wins, 4 different halves of basketball, and arguably a different player shining through in each one of those halves. That's how deep this squad is. And none of them have been Oscar Goodman, who's probably the best player in the group yet. His turn's coming next.
What is next for the New Zealand under-19 basketball team at this World Cup?
Well, wins over Argentina and Mali, very good start. They then have to play Serbia, which is tonight. That's that game. The thing about Serbia, though, is that they already lost to Mali and they lost to Argentina. So actually, even though coming into it, Serbia were the team being talked about, at least on the FIBA website. I was trying to find some kind of previews, and the FIBA website had a little bit with a paragraph for each team, and they said Serbia will be the heavyweights in this group. So doesn't look like it because they've lost to both teams so that they've played so far, and we're going to play. We've beaten both the teams that have beaten them, so hopefully we can wrap that up tonight. But the thing is, if New Zealand don't beat Serbia, doesn't matter because they still finish top of the group. And it's one of those tournaments where it's like, I think everyone just goes through to the next round. There's 16 teams, and the group stage kind of just sorts out your seedings. But in basketball, that's quite important, because if you like, you don't want to be playing America in the second round, right? So, um, this way, I think I saw someone, it might have been NBL Pleb on Twitter, who has emerged recently as like one of the better follows for Australasian basketball stuff, saying I think it was Slovenia or China are the teams we're likely to face in the next round. I don't know if that's true or not, but I can't work it out any better than that. So, um, yeah, they're going through to the next round regardless, but the good thing is they're going through the next round as a top seed. If they beat Serbia, I believe that makes them the first New Zealand team to ever win all of their games in a group stage at a FIBA event. Like the under 17s last year didn't do that. They lost at least one of their group stage games. The Tall Blacks in 2002, they lost a group stage game or two or something like that. That's never been done before. That's something, that a little bit of history that's on the line there. But more importantly, I think when they've shown this kind of, especially defensive quality, because they're scoring, like, no one scored 20 points in one of these games yet, no individual. Their 3-point shooting is like 27.5% or something like that, which sounds bad, but it's actually top half in the tournament, because no one shoots very well from 3-point range at this age, apparently. Even the USA team is only sort of at like 33% or something like that. So, it's definitely been defensively where the junior Tall Blacks have thrived, and they've been, yeah, outstanding. They're three of the, weirdly, Mali had a second quarter where they scored like 27 points and started knocking down a bunch of threes, but that was a complete anomaly in the rest of the game, because in the first quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter, they scored less than 10 points in every one of those quarters. So they were out to single digits in a quarter, less than a point per minute. In 3 of the 4 quarters of that game, they only scored 50 points in the entire game, despite scoring 27 of them in one of those quarters alone. So, yeah, it's like really good defensive team, good enough to grind out offense when they need it. They do have a variety of 3-point shooters. They do have guys like Tama Isaac and Jackson Ball and Hayden Jones, who are able to, get to the rim for layups. They've got Julius Halafanoa, who's a big dog who can muscle up down there. Like they get to the free throw line too, a lot of these guys. So they've got more than enough offense in them, more than enough scoring in them. Add that to a strong defensive team. Add that to what's clearly like a really cohesive unit, well coached team by Matt Lacey and his staff. And off the back of most of these players having been involved in successful tournament stuff at an age grade level last year, like, getting to the knockouts isn't really enough. You want to go win a knockout game, then you want to try win another knockout game. So this is definitely one of those ones where it's like, let's see how far they can take it. Regardless, we're going to be looking back at this as like a collection of players that's probably going to, like, highlight the next generation of Kiwi men's basketball. But this is an exciting team worth watching that can actually, like, they can do some damage when they get to the knockout. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see who they draw and what kind of what the brackets look like. But a lot to be excited about there.
Got a game tonight as well, so we'll see how they go against Serbia.
Indeed.
Before looking too far ahead, I know very little about this team, but I got a hunch there's not many short blokes on this team, even for basketball standards, right? Like these, like you're talking Hayden Jones, Jackson Ball, Goodman. Like these are kind of the point guardy playmaker types, but they're all tall as timber. They're long, as they say in basketball. So is there a short bloke in the team holding it down for all the average height citizens?
Well, do you remember that photo of Julius Halafanoa with Steven Adams from about a year ago, where he's taller than Steven Adams? As a 17-year-old, he was taller than Steven Adams. So yeah, it's not a short team, and maybe Tom Isaac might be that guy, but even then, I don't know the specifics. I haven't looked at exactly how tall they are, and also like under 19 World Cup, they might not be finished growing. A few of them might be able to add a little bit more onto that too. So yeah, maybe Tom Isaac, but he's pretty strong and he's pretty nimble for a point guard. So I don't think if he's a little bit shorter than the other guys, that's certainly not holding him back. And that's been something that was quite easy to take note of watching, like, because a lot of New Zealand basketball teams, we see them like there's a reputation that we love for being able to like punch above their weight, right? Just having that kind of like everyone's going to do the one percenters, it's team first, and it might not be the fastest, might not be the strongest, might not be the tallest, but they're going to 100% on every play and blah blah blah. We love that about Kiwi basketball, and this team still has that, but they're not punching above their weight because in both games against Argentina and against Mali, they actually just looked like the stronger, taller, more athletic team. Like they had like they won the rebounding count by double digits in both of these games. They've absolutely dominated the boards. That's not a punching above your weight thing. That is their weight. That's just what they are. This is a team that actually like these guys are athletes. They're not just skilled players, and they're not just guys who play hard. They're actual like they're world-class athletes for their age, and this is what we're seeing. And like this is one of the reasons why this team is so exciting. They're out there competing completely on merits. They're not waiting for the other team to have a bad day. They were just better than Argentina. They were better than Mali, and hopefully they'll be better than Serbia, and hopefully they'll be better than whoever they play in the next round as well.
I think we have a contender for the most valuable player in New Zealand basketball. And that is
was his last name in the name of the sport?
Yes, it was. It's Jackson Ball, the unofficial fourth ball brother. Because not only is he championing, that's a terrible way to describe it, not only is he a key player in the New Zealand under-19 basketball team, but he was a key player for the Hawke's Bay Hawks. And now that he's not playing for the Hawke's Bay Hawks, the Hawke's Bay Hawks are now second to last in the New Zealand NBL. So he might be the most valuable player for his two teams, most on display in his absence for the Hawke's Bay Hawks. Fascinating week of NBL basketball because Canterbury Rams have now lost 2 games in a row. No Taylor Britt, I don't think, for their loss against Taranaki in Christchurch, which was fantastic. And we had Carlin Davison, big balls himself, was doing some great stuff there. So shout out Carlin Davison, one of the most entertaining and, to be honest, just straight up best players in the New Zealand NBL. Southland Sharks, they've won at least their last 5 games. They also had a win against Tauranga Whai in Invercargill. And the thing I love about NBL basketball, the thing I love about NPC rugby is seeing the big crowds around the regions. And that includes Invercargill because they're getting behind their team. And it's a ruckus. Old arena down there in Invercargill for the Southland Sharks. We talked about their coach. Do you have his name, Andy? Southland Sharks coach, who we talked about last week.
I can look it up.
Yeah, very quickly on your bike. Because he's doing a fantastic job leading that team, gets the crowd involved. He had them all in for a huddle after the game, and then they gave the old pucky to the crowd. This is what makes NBL basketball so fun, is seeing big crowds around the regional areas of Aotearoa, and Southland Sharks have responded. They're charging up the ladder, now 4th. So we go Wellington Saints. They've overtaken Canterbury Rams. Wellington Saints had a win over Hawke's Bay last week. And then we go Canterbury Rams, Taranaki, Southland Sharks, Manawatu, Auckland, Tuatara, Franklin Bulls. Southland Sharks coaches
Jonathan Yim.
Shout out to him. He's doing a fantastic job. And obviously he loves Aotearoa because he's down there doing the thing in Invercargill. What have you, do you have any observations about Southland Sharks? Sam Timmins, he's awesome.
Yeah, that's the observation. Like their imports are fantastic and they kind of lead the way. But Sam Timmins has popped up once he finished. I think he was in Japan. I think that's right. And yeah, once he wrapped up his season, turned up for Southland, it's been one of the tipping points in their season is for them getting to where they are now is Sam Timmins arriving, big man presence. He just seems to get 15 points and 10 rebounds or something like that every game lately. He's always doing that. He had a great season last year as well, so he's just building off the back of that. But yeah, that's That's great stuff from Sam Timmins, and he's the star man Kiwi player on that roster to watch for. They've got an American coach, they've got a few American imports. Some of the teams have star Australian imports, which is I don't know. Well, I guess it's just because of you if you watch the Aussie NBL, those players are a little bit more recognizable. So it's kind of like seeing like Sean McDonald or Kyle Bowen or whoever is a little bit more maybe relatable than the import Americans who turn up and you don't know their name and they all sort of play the same, but they're all really good. But Southland, they've got the American crew and they're leading them to a lot of victories. But Sam Timmins is certainly holding it down for the locals.
And Taranaki, drop some insights on Taranaki Airs. When I say Taranaki, you say Airs. Shout out to that arena, the old New Plymouth, big time things down there.
Yeah, one of the more fun places for these games for sure. They're all about a bit of Carlin Davidson, isn't it? Like that's where are we on the old? Let me check the box score against Canterbury because there was the Canterbury slipping up. No Taylor Britt in the last two games, and they lost both of those games. So he might be rivaling Jackson Ball for valuable Kiwi player presence. I saw he's questionable because tonight, like Tuesday night, is Rams versus Saints. I think it might be in Wellington, which is obviously a enormous game because if the Saints win that's top seed locked up for them instead of Canterbury. If the Rams win it, then I think they have one more game they would need to win because that's Wellington's last game, but Canterbury still have another one on the weekend. But it would probably mean the Rams getting first seed instead, and that's going to determine if these two teams meet in the final. I assume that it's going to determine where that final is held, which is a pretty big deal because those two teams both have raucous home crowds. But yeah, Carlin Davidson, that game, he 14 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists. Doesn't say turnovers on Tribe on the thing, but I'm guessing there were a few of those as well because that's how he plays. Is he plays these like no lookers behind the back passes, and he'll throw these one-handers out to the dudes on the wing, and it's so much fun to watch. It can be a little bit erratic, but that's part of the joy is you don't know what you're going to get. But undercover man for them as well has been Jack Andrews. So another Kiwi big fella who's just as if it wasn't for Carlin Davidson, like Jack Andrew might be the most improved player in the competition. He's been outstanding for them. Just massive rebounds every game. He's one of the leading rebounders in the league. He does pop up with a few points when he's needed. Big defensive presence. And a sneaky one as well, probably grabbing Jalen Durand off the Indian Panthers RIP mid-season I think that's been a nice little spark for them as having someone who could come in and shoot some 3-pointers off that bench too.
Seems like years ago we lost the old Indian Panthers, so I hope they're doing well.
Yeah.
Hopefully, whatever. Righto, let's check in with the New Zealand Warriors. Now, you alluded to Luke Metcalf there. Like, what sparked that kind of thought pattern in your head? I'm just curious.
Well, it's not so much. I don't think I necessarily would have. Maybe overrated is the word I might have used. I'm not sure, but not in a way where it's like, is this guy secretly rubbish? Is this guy actually terrible? It's not that. He's clearly been fantastic for the Warriors this season. It's just that he got injured, and Chance Tuka-Klokstad got injured in the same game. And the Aussie commentators are just talking about Luke Metcalf, Dally M candidate, and how the Warriors going to cope without this. And I'm thinking, well, I think actually losing their fullback who gets 200 meters every single game might be the bigger loss. So when I say like, is Luke Metcalf a little bit overrated for his performances this season? I'm not trying to suggest that he's been in any way bad. I think he's been the team's best playmaker, but maybe the angle is a little bit more like, is he more replaceable than perhaps the first instinct might suggest?
So the first thing there, because I actually thought about this as well. Like, I definitely think he is overrated in the context that you're saying. Like, Okay, when the Warriors were winning, there was a bit of like Luke Metcalf. Could he step in for New South Wales? Isaiah Katoa is better than Luke Metcalf. And I think he's better than Luke Metcalf by quite a considerable margin. So that alone would suggest that he's overrated because people are putting Luke Metcalf in the same category as Wellington's Isaiah Katoa. Little like Isaiah Katoa, we were prepared for that. He's always representing Tonga, and he's suggested that he was going to play for New South Wales. The Jesse Arthur's selection in the Queensland squad, that was a bit iffy for me. That hit my Aotearoa heart hard. So I had to adjust the Kiwi-NRL umbrella and keep moving forward. But we do have Casey McLean, born and raised in Sydney. Also young, like 19 years old, 18 years old. So it's okay. That's the thing. We win some, we lose some. Keep on trucking. So, like, yes, I think now, if you're following the Dally M's, which is the one and only measurement of rugby league quality, which I kind of think is voted on by the media. Can you confirm that?
Yeah,
Can you
just a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy there. I think that is true. There's like the media. I don't know if it's a broadcast team. I assume the radio fellas have some say in it. Like it's not just Greg Alexander or whoever or Blocker, but yeah, the wider media. But I'm pretty certain that is how they do it.
Yeah, just for actual factual sake, can you just confirm that? Like
I shall.
Sure. If you're looking at the Dally M's, Luke Metcalf's up there. Again, to me, that tells me he is overrated. And that is, it comes back around to who the Warriors are and what they do, because all season long it's been Chanel Harris-Tavita has the try assists. Chanel Harris-Tavita also has a lot of kicking meters. Like the Warriors halves share the workload nicely. Is Luke Metcalf more important to the Warriors than Wade Egan? No. Is he more important than Shantz Nickel-Crockstar? Not really. Given how they share the workload, I don't think he's head and shoulders way more important than Chanel Harris-Tavita. So I do think he's overrated. I want to get into that kind of selection squad stuff in a jiffy because they will. Well, let's just keep going then. They will refresh this roster. Now, the thing about Luke Metcalf, who's been ruled out for the season now, is like, okay, why do the Warriors have Tomato Martin and Tana Boyd playing reserve grade every week? As up until like a couple of weeks ago when Tomato Martin came into the NRL squad. It's for this moment. Like the Warriors have a lot of depth, and their New South Wales Cup team, let's just check in there because they're first 15-1, and they had a win over the Sea Eagles last weekend with 9 under-21s players. So the New South Wales Cup Warriors just had a win with over half of their team being under-21s, which included both halves, Jet Cleary, Luke Hansen. Because Tana Boyd was 18th man, Tomato Martin was on the bench in the NRL team, and guess what? The Jersey Flegg team, they had a win with 2 under-19 halves, Jack Thompson and Maui Winitana Patalaseo. So the Warriors, like, why did they sign Tana Boyd? Why was Tana Boyd content to play New South Wales Cup when he had NRL offers? Because you need this level of depth to be a good NRL team. Straight up and down, what is Luke Metcalf really good at? He's fast. Tomato Martin is a better passer than Luke Metcalf, and I believe Tana Boyd is a better, pure, genuine number 7 than Luke Metcalf. And that is the position the Warriors are in now, because over the last 2 weeks, we have seen the limitations of their style of footy. It all got a bit stale. And there is the funky thing here is that a few weeks ago I was saying this is a Fisher-Harris team. They are playing Fisher-Harris Rugby League. Now we have a situation where a Fisher-Harris team has been physically dominated 2 weeks in a row. which seems ridiculous. And I'm curious how the team responds. Of course, they have a bye this weekend, and I think they are going to be doing a lot of soul searching, a lot of pondering, a lot of meditations on how to respond. But like, this is where Warriors Rugby League is at. Their style of play looked stale in those 2 losses. The Fisher-Harris physicality, brutality, collision, patience, grinding style wasn't there. So suddenly that Fisher-Harris identity has disappeared. And if there's one bloke I trust the most, it's going to be Fisher-Harris to get that identity back. Although he did do some weird shenanigans in that game against the Broncos, because he's got this like niggly situation where he feels like he has to niggle the opponent above and beyond, and then they got a scrum penalty. And it looked like Jacob Laban conceded that scrum penalty, but Fisher-Harris was like, certainly wasn't lining up correctly in the scrum. I don't know how to describe it. Like, so think about a rugby union scrum. You want to hit square shoulders, and you can't really like angle in. Fisher-Harris started that scrum with his like backside out to the side, angling in. It's like, why are you doing all this? Just like set up the scrum properly. And then they had to reset because Laban's the dude behind him, and it looks like he is not part of the scrum because Fisher-Harris's backside is all the way out to the side, gets a warning, keeps doing it, concedes the penalty. It's like, bro, what are we doing here? But that's just part of this mixing bowl where I'm like, this team, this Fisher-Harris identity has suddenly vanished, and they have no ruck control. They're not winning the collisions, and that's something I'm tracking. And we've now seen, and if you go back to that Sharks game, right? What did we talk about around that Sharks game? And Fanua Blake is really he's gonna pick a battle with Fisher-Harris. The Sharks forward pack, they're gonna come at them. Funnily enough, when you think about how the last 3 weeks of NRL footy have gone, Panthers are on the rise, Broncos are on the rise, Sharks are on the slide. The only team that talked about attacking the Warriors forward pack were the Sharks, and they didn't do it. But then the Panthers and the Broncos went above and beyond, but I keep saying that. They just went full hundies at attacking the Warriors physically, but they didn't talk about it. So there's a little like, the win against the Sharks was nice, but we're kind of finding out the Sharks are a little bit stinky. And then you've got 2 teams who came out full hundies physicality, brutal, fast, just ready to smash Warriors over and over again. And the Warriors didn't respond. And it's the thing I'm most excited about, because I am excited, is that the Warriors have the players to freshen things up here. Because no matter who you put in at halfback, Tamaita Martin or Tana Boyd, they play differently to Luke Metcalf. I don't think you can prepare to play back foot rugby league. Because like every team they want to win, your intention has to be to dominate the opposition physically. So you're not like, hey, we're going to give up that physical battle, but we need to be able to play back foot rugby league. We're going to submit and pick a player who excels in that role of playing off the back foot. You can't do that. But we've seen over the last 2 weeks how limited the Warriors are if they are playing off the back foot. Because Wade Egan can't get out of dummy half if they're losing the ruck. Luke Metcalf isn't going to have space to run if you're losing the ruck. They're decent kickers, but they don't have the ginormous kicks of a Mitchell Moses to play off the back foot in that way. So, but like, I do think they need to add some more strings to the quiver, some more arrows to the quiver, some different ways of scoring points and attacking, getting downfield. Because if you're being dominated physically, you can't get out of dummy half. Sean's Nickel Clockstar's running into 3 dudes. He's getting smashed. Aaron Clark's getting smashed, and so on and so forth. And then you're kicking off your 30-meter line. Then there's no Warriors flow here. So I think they need to freshen up. They will want to improve their physicality and all that stuff. Aside from hoping that Mitchell Barnett goes to the hyperbaric time chamber and recovers quick enough, I don't think you can make any selections to help the physicality. That is something that the Warriors have to find within themselves. That is something that Fisher Harris will have to lead them forward in recovery. But if you have Taine Tuapiki at fullback, he's really fast. He's really skillful. He's got more zip than Nickel Clockstar. So he can create space that Nickel Clockstar can't create. If there is one player who I think can do a job off the back foot, to me, it is Tana Boyd, who already has NRL experience. Because he's like, the reason I highlight the fact that he's a pure, genuine number 7, to be a pure, genuine number 7, you have to be able to do that job off the back foot. Tamaira Martin, to me, isn't a pure, genuine number 7 because he doesn't have the kicking game off the back foot. His kicking game off the front foot is the worst of those Warriors halves. So I don't know what he's going to do off the back foot. But the thing that makes Tamaira Martin awesome to me is how he counts numbers, how he picks the right pass. He's a good runner and a great passer, which is a fantastic skill set to have in the NRL. The other bloke I'm thinking about here is Samuel Healy. Because Healy is, like, he's a little bit, I think he's just as big, if not a little bit bigger than Wade Egan, but he's got an offload. He's a tackle buster. He is a funky razzle-dazzle type of hooker. You never know what to expect from Sam Healy. He is, like, he doesn't have the no-look pass. He doesn't have the crisp passing in both directions of Wade Egan, but he's more unpredictable. He can do unpredictable things from a slow play the ball. Now, how you get all these pieces in together, we'll have to wait and see for next week's team list. And this is kind of just taking stock of where the Warriors are at after 2 losses. They are still 4th on the ladder, though. They'll get 2 points. They'll win the bye, so congratulations to them. But heading into that bye, they're 4 points ahead of the Broncos. The last player who deserves a mention in this category of freshen up possibilities is someone who won't play NRL next weekend. But Sio Kelly has been playing the last few games in New South Wales Cup on the wing. Now, if we're talking about stale Warriors attack, if we're talking about something that just sums up the Warriors from the last 2 weeks, it's the right winger. Dallin Waitane-Zelezniak wasn't really offering much before getting injured. Maybe he was carrying an injury. Maybe he was just stale. But there was no... With him on the right wing, there's just not much doing there. But it's probably a little bit more than old Edward Cossey, who... To me, Ed Cossey is a bit like Moala Graham-Taufa, where I'm not just like, yeah, you really took that opportunity. Shout out to you. You got your opportunity. You demanded another crack. Didn't really feel that way about Cossey. He's kind of big for nothing. He's not very fast, and he drops the ball. So you put Ed Kosi in space, he's going to get tackled. You put Ed Kosi in space, it's 50-50 if he drops the ball. You put Ed Kosi in the team because you think he's going to make a lot of meters carting the footy up. But he doesn't. For whatever reason, he doesn't. I'm sure you might have some Dragons forwards who are like, you probably shouldn't be driven backwards every time.
There's a few of those. There's a few. The Dragons had a good win on the weekend, though.
Sorry.
They bounced back. Beat the mighty Eels. So.
This is another question I was going to throw at you earlier, but who was your favourite Flanagan?
Oh, that's not a fair question. I will say I think some of the criticism of Kyle Flanagan is a little bit too easy. You know, it's easy to target the coach's son where he's not a great halfback. I'd take at least 3 of those Warriors options over him, but he has probably been the most consistent half for the Dragons.
You're a Shane Flanagan type of guy, or are you a Kyle Flanagan?
Well, the thing is, I like Kyle Flanagan better. I think Shane Flanagan is better at his job, if that makes sense. You got to sort of right. It depends on the angle of it. Shane Flanagan, I don't necessarily think I would get on with him personally, but he has won a premiership as a coach before. He is a good coach. He's just a little bit hard edged in a few ways.
Yeah, I can imagine you getting along with old Webby, like you'd have a beer with him.
Yeah, sure. He does seem like he's the type, sure.
I'm more of a Wayne Bennett type of cat, you know, old soul, old wise sage.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, I wouldn't mind a beer with Craig Bellamy either, but let's.
I was thinking that too.
What am I trying to say? Do you catch what I'm saying about like the freshen up that is available to the Warriors? Like, I can see how there's doom and gloom about Metcalf, but there are other options available, and those other options offer different skill sets. There might be, as you noted, Luke Metcalf, big miss, major blow, Shans Nickel-Clockster, meh. But how do you replace Shans Nickel-Clockster? You don't replace him. You put a different bloke in that position. How do you replace Luke Metcalf? You don't replace him. You put a different player in. Taine Tuapiki plays fullback in a different way to Nickel-Clockster. Tamaita Martin, Tana Boyd, they play in the halves differently to Luke Metcalf. Personally, I think they can be just as good. I think the Warriors can win with Taine Tuapiki at fullback. I think the Warriors can win with Tana Boyd in the halves, at halfback. Or Tamaita Martin. But I forgot to finish my C.O. Kelly point. Because C.O. Kelly, now this is the thing about the Warriors, they don't have a threat on the wings. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, if the ball gets to him, first and foremost, the defense, they're on high alert. So they're always going to have 2 bodies in front of them, maybe 3. Tuivasa-Sheck's not going to run around the opposition. It's not going to happen. He's not fast enough. He might
also run a sideline in the way while he's playing on the wing.
Correct. He might do the. I think we can do better than saying Samoan sidestep, Tongan sidestep, Māori sidestep. He might do the Palangi sidestep and run over the opposition player. He's probably going to step back in field. Watane Zalesniak, Ed Kosi, they're not running around anyone on the wings. They're not going to run over anyone on the wings. They're not going to sidestep anyone on the wings. Funnily enough, Taine Tuapiki can do those things because he's fast and he's got good footwork. So he can actually run around the opposition defense. And if they overcommit on that, he can bounce back in field and use that burst of speed. C.O. Kelly, as he showed on the weekend, because he scored a fantastic try running down the sideline where he was faster than everyone else, he has the ability to freshen up the Warriors' wing position. I don't think it's going to happen soon, but he has that potential. And that is to me, that is just outlining one of the issues the Warriors have. You look at the Storm. Pappenhausen's fast. Xavier Coates is fast. Grant Anderson's pretty fast. Fa'alongo, lightning.
Till he pops his hamstring.
Yeah, unfortunately. Sorry for him. The one and only New Zealand Rugby League superstar that no one knows about, Alec MacDonald, really fast for a middle forward. What was the Warriors' biggest issue last year? They were slow. To me, against the Panthers and the Broncos, the Warriors have looked really slow. They don't have fast wingers, which is kind of your first area you're looking for speed. They did when Taintua-Piki was on the wing, but now I'm thinking I really want Taintua-Piki to get an opportunity at fullback if Nickel Clockstar is unavailable. And then that opens the door for Sio Kelly to get an opportunity as a fast, powerful, skillful, funky, like bouncing around type of winger that every NRL team needs, in my opinion. I think like this is I'm excited because the Warriors have the tools in their squad to refresh things, is my ultimate kind of settling point here. As like, we know they'll need a new halfback, so that's the key spot there. Then you've got Taintua-Piki at fullback. Then you have Samuel Healy. I think he needs an opportunity because he's just so unpredictable. Like, there's no shape. He just offloads. Thing about Samuel Healy, he has been playing as a middle forward in New South Wales Cup. So he's already got that experience of the positional versatility that you'll need to be on the bench for the NRL team. Because for like 30 minutes in a New South Wales Cup game, Makai Tafua, Freddie Lussick, and Sam Healy are on the field together. And Makai Tafua is playing hooker. So that's my order of how they can freshen up things. Halfback, I want to see Tana Boyd play, to be honest. So it goes halfback Tana Boyd, fullback Taupiki, Sam Healy utility, and then Sio Kelly on the wing. I'm not sure where that leaves Tamaira Martin, but he deserves the top 17 spot as well. So these are like, what is all of that? Depth. There's so many options available to refresh this roster. And coming back to Luke Metcalf, this Warriors team, this group is not dependent on any one player. It's dependent on the whole squad, the whole team chiming in with all their different skill sets. How does all that fired up jibber jabber sound to you?
Well, I mean the idea of being able to freshen up at this stage of the season. It's not the kind of thing like a few weeks ago, you're on a winning streak, you're not even thinking about that kind of stuff. But when you have lost a couple of games and you have had a couple of key injuries, that is, well, I mean, if you had injuries, you have to replace those players one way or another, whether you're trying to change the pattern or not. But I do think that's an important aspect to this, is that like you can pick someone, like you have two options there. You pick someone else to come in and be Chancellor Klokstad and say like, do the things that he does. Try be like him. I mean, if you're looking for that, actually, probably your best option would be Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. But that's another like shaking things up, because then you've got to find a winger who can do what RTS does on the left edge. So, like that's one way of doing things. The other way of doing things is to say, well, we're just going to pick our next best fullback, and we're going to ask that guy to play the way they play. Don't try to copy the guy you're replacing. Just come in here and give us what you are best at doing, which is probably Taintaupiki looking to do use his pace and bring in a little bit extra counter-attacking kind of stuff. And I think that tends to be the better way to do it. Because if you're trying to replace the guy who's already there, or you're really trying to, like, 9 times out of 10, you're just going to end up with an inferior version of what you already had. Because otherwise, that guy would be starting ahead of the guy that got injured, right? Obviously, the guy who got injured is your best player because that's why he was there. And yeah, trying to recreate what you lose exactly like that, I think tends to be one of those things where you're never gonna get it quite right, and it effectively just weakens your team. Whereas if you empower the next guy who comes up and say, like, look, we're gonna have to adapt around you maybe a little bit in order to fit you in, but that's going to happen more naturally because we're allowing you to come and play a natural game. If it's Taintaupiki, or if we're talking about halfbacks, if we're talking about Sam Healy coming off the bench or whatever, if he steps up to that utility role, like that's whatever it is, that's just, as a player, you'd far rather that, surely, because you're having your coach tell you, like, look, we believe in what you have to offer. We want you to feel confident. We want you to get out there and give us the best of your abilities, but the best of your abilities, not the best of the guy who you're replacing's abilities. So I think that's probably it's not the ideal situation, obviously, for the Warriors to have to be evolving a little bit like that at this stage of the season, but it might be a timely one in its own way. And then the other thing I thought of when you're talking about that is how, like, with the exception of the right wing spot, all of those positions kind of could be filled by Te Maire Martin. He could just do all of them. He could be the halfback. He could be what he's already been doing as the utility guy off the bench. He could be the fullback. Like wherever. And that gives, like, the versatility of this team is something that you've talked about a fair bit. And this is another example of that, where it's like you have options for all of these positions. And Te Maire Martin's going to play one of them, but do you put him at fullback and have maybe a bit more of a steady hand there in order to be able to get, like, if he's not there, then that means, like, if Taupiki's not there, then he plays on the wing probably. If Martin plays halfback, then Tana Boyd doesn't get in, but you get Taupiki on one side, someone else plays on the wing. You get to have Healy on the bench, or maybe Boyd does that job or whatever. Like, there's a little bit of musical chairs there about how they do the solution, because how you choose to fill one of those empty spots affects how you fill the other empty spots, because everyone's kind of there's a lot of versatility there, a lot of guys who can play in each of these positions. So and that has knock-on effects and whatever, so that's something for a coach to figure out. But it's probably also a good thing to have that, because, I mean, it means you're not just falling back on like whatever you're not falling back on your last options here and saying, well, it has to be him because we've got no one else. It's another talking about empowering players by allowing them to play to their best, play their natural games effectively. This is also empowering a coach in its own way, because he gets to make the decision of how he wants his team to look, where you've got a few moving parts there, and you get to mix and match a little bit to try figure out the balance that he's looking for.
You hit on a few good summary points there. We're in a situation where, okay, the Warriors lose what sounds to be like their third greatest halfback ever. Respect to Stacey Jones, and obviously
Stacey Jones, Sean Johnson, Luke Metcalf.
Definitely in that order.
James Maloney fourth. He wasn't there long enough.
I mean, small sample size, like James Maloney might have been better than Sean Johnson, because, like, Warriors didn't make the finals much with Sean Johnson if we're keeping it a full steak and cheese. But the thing is, like, the Warriors have two players. Like, we are discussing how to fit all these options in, because there's too many options. Te Maire Martin and Tana Boyd can't both play halfback. So the Warriors lose their third greatest halfback. I'll just chill out for a second. Their third greatest halfback, and they have two players to select from. That is the situation the Warriors as an organization are in. And that is a fantastic place to be, which we can take further. Now, I'm not going to say this with like my full chest, because maybe Mr. dropping elbows on people on the field, Mitchell Barnett, might have actually helped in these last two games, right? Like if you're being physically dominated, you want a bit of a nutcase in Mitchell Barnett out there for sure. And the Warriors are a better team with Mitchell Barnett on the field. But my point is that the Warriors, there is a chance the Warriors stay in the top 4 without Mitchell Barnett or Luke Metcalf, and maybe Chance Nickel-Krokstad, because I don't know his injury status. Right? How crazy would that be? Australians would have their minds blown, because you lose one of them, season over. You lose 2 of them, you're out of the NRL. You're relegated. But there's a chance that the Warriors stay in the top 4 without Mitchell Barnett, Luke Metcalf, and or Chance Nickel-Krokstad. That's crazy. And that goes again to the strength of the organization. Your point about the coach was super important, though, because we're going to see how tied to his style of footy Andrew Webster is. Because I've seen signs, and we've talked about it. He is very adaptable. But there are also some core fundamentals. So what's the balance of Andrew Webster, as you're saying, allowing players to play their way and tinkering with some of his core fundamentals? Because if you've got a back 3 with Te Maire Martin, Taine Tuapiki, and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, that seems to go against a fundamental element of Andrew Webster's style of rugby league, which is that back 3. You better be busy, because you're doing a lot of work. So I'm fascinated to see how that looks. Like this, I think in summary about the Warriors, this is a time where we're going to learn a lot about the playing group, the coach, and the organization for a variety of reasons. Like we've got New South Wales Cup, they keep winning. We've got Jersey Flegg doing all right, but you've also got NRLW starting. So the Warriors start their NRLW season next week. So obviously with all of that happening, we're going to learn a lot about the organization. But the NRL team, we're going to see how flexible is Andrew Webster in the style of play the Warriors have. Is he, like, what's he thinking about Tanner Boyd? What's he thinking about Sam Healy? What's he thinking about Sio Kelly? What's he thinking about Taine Tuapiki? Taine Tuapiki, who had 27 runs, 2 line break assists, 1 try assist, 13 tackle breaks, 4 offloads, and 2 kicks at fullback in New South Wales Cup last weekend. So I'm ready to be like, I need to learn about Andrew Webster in this moment. And if done correctly, which is like, that's a ridiculous thing to say. Again, there is a chance that the Warriors stay in the top 4 without Mitchell Barnett, without Luke Metcalf, without Chance Nickel-Krokstad. And if that happens, Andrew Webster has been pulling some strings in the background. Fisher Harris has done some soul searching. There's been some bold selection calls made. There's been some flexibility in the playing style. This is a fascinating period for the Warriors in the NRL. And when I'm talking about like that style of play, the Broncos. Now, fantastic game for their Kiwi-NRL players. Xavier Willison was awesome. Couple of fun moments because I think Te Maire Martin charged down a kick that went straight into the hands of Xavier Willison. Little Taharoa moment there. But also, Xavier Willison ran straight at Te Maire Martin and they had a nice little contact. Te Maire Martin held his own and Xavier Willison just got up smiling, laughing. And I was like, obviously the commentators haven't done any background information research to, because how awesome would that be? Like going back to Leota versus Fisher Harris, how awesome would it be to have the commentators to say, well, actually, Xavier, Willison, and Tamaira Martin come from the same place in New Zealand. I think they're cousins in some way, maybe. That's not an actual factual. And they just smashed each other. But commentators don't know that, so they don't talk about that. And you got to be like really tuned in to see Xavier Willison get up, smiling and laughing and looking straight at Tamaira Martin like, wow, here we go. So that was cool. Jordan Riki. Enjoying Jordan Riki's work. He's settling into a nice little flow for the Broncos as well. But you look at, okay, so Michael Maguire, the coach. Who are the two players who have dropped out of the Broncos team? Selwyn Cobbo, Dean Mariner. Who are the players who have come into the team? Well, Jesse Arthurs has held down a wing spot all season. What does he do? Runs really hard. Always makes meters, and he's always in the game. Shibasaki. There's not much fancy about him, but he does the job. Big body, good carrier, and does his job with and without the footy. Recent weeks, though, we've seen Josiah Karapani, who is an Otahu junior. I think he's actually from Otara, went to Pakuranga College. He's now on the wing. Karapani is 3-0 as a winger this season. Dean Mariner is 1-4 as a winger with the Broncos. So Michael Maguire has shuffled Selwyn Cobbo out of the whole organization, basically. But Dean Mariner's also fallen out of the top 17 with Karapani getting that consistent selection on the wing. Why is that? Because he's more robust, he's more powerful, he's more dynamic. Like Mariner's really, really fast, but he doesn't seem to do the hard work that Karapani does as a winger. What does that look like? Karapani averaging 150 meters per game this season. Mariners averaging 117. Give or take a few meters there, because Mariner did play a few games at center. Okay, let's be generous. Add another 10 meters. 127 meters per game versus 150. That's why Karapani's playing right now ahead of Mariner, and that's what Michael Maguire wants from his outside backs. Now, if you take out Cobbo as well, then you're like, he doesn't really want the razzle-dazzle, funky skills and attacking ability. He wants the hard work. And Karapani is thriving in that situation. So shout out to Karapani, because he's had a bit of a journey, played SG ball for the Warriors in 2020, went to the Rabbitohs, had a really quick rise with the Rabbitohs, but then he fell out of favor at the Rabbitohs, picked up by the Broncos. He's had to earn everything that's come his way, and now he is pretty much, to me, established as a starting winger for the Broncos. And Karapani is also eligible for Samoa. So we've had a lot more Samoan depth come in over the recent weeks. We've talked a lot about Simi Sasangi, Ata Mariota. We've had Salisa Leo Moana debut for the Knights. We've had Karapani settle in for the Broncos, and of course, Benaya Iowelu with the Roosters. Something we've been talking every week. So that goes like, first, there's a little Kiwi-NRL spotlight on Karapani and the Broncos. But it also shows you like some coaches have their way of doing things. Dragons, Tyrell Sloan. He got shuffled out for Clint Gutherson.
Speaking of being shuffled, yep.
Because Gutherson, he's always in the play, 20 runs per game, does all the hard work, and he's a pure leader.
And he can catch the ball.
That helps as well. Reliable. Tyrell Sloan, he's not on the wing though now either. Why is that? Because he's not Karapani, he's not Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. He's not doing the work. There's different styles of wing play. But a lot of NRL wing play is just pure work. Xavier Coates for the Melbourne Storm, he runs like a psycho. We've seen Will Warbrick learn how to run like a psycho before he's had a big injury layoff. Those are the things you need to do as an NRL winger. That's what made Tane Tuaupiki doing a job on the wing very impressive, because he doesn't run like a psycho. He bounces around, but he still needs to do the work required. It's not like Andrew Webster just says, Tane Tuaupiki, you're on the wing. Don't worry about taking any runs because you're a wee fella. No, it's like you still need 15 runs in the game. You might not do it the same way other wingers do it, but you still need to get in there and take your runs. And he did his job. So it just shows you a little example of the different ways and coaching styles and all that stuff. You got any thoughts?
I'm just flashing through memories of Tyrell Sloan making errors in my head right now. So, yeah. But like, I guess you could say, to give it one of the rare Kiwi-NRL angles that the Dragons have is Christian Tuipulotu has kind of done that at the start of the season more than he's been injured and then got injured again in warm-ups and coming a week after coming back from injury and getting injured again. So that's been frustrating. But like start of the season, he was scoring a bunch of tries. Cool, sweet as. But he's also running the ball hard. He's also a good solid physical presence there on the wing. So that's the opposite of what someone like Tyrell Sloan didn't do, where it's like, you didn't win your job at fullback. You've lost it now. There's a better player coming to take that role, and Gutherson's been awesome this year for the Dragons. You get a lifeline to go play on the wing, but you got to play like a winger. And you don't do that, well, you're looking for another club now, midway through the season.
Indeed. Good win, though, over the Eels.
Great first half. Second half got sweaty. I was a bit worried there for a little while, but thankfully it was the Eels who get really close to sparking a comeback and then just make some mistakes. And also Josh Adokar having, if his shoe size was one size smaller, that would have been trouble.
Who are the clubs that, like, as a Dragons fan, you look down on right now?
I'd say the Eels, but we lost to them in the reverse fixture earlier this season. So Melbourne Storm beat the Melbourne Storm at the start of the year.
Seriously.
No, but the games where it's like this is the fixture this week. This feels winnable. This doesn't feel like we need them to have an off day and the Dragons to be awesome to win. I would say the obvious picks would be Tigers, Titans, Eels. That might be it. I think other teams get to add the Dragons to that list, maybe, but the Dragons have had some good performances this year. They're in all right. They might make the 8, maybe.
And they've got a really funky, I think, NRLW team. So NRLW starts this weekend. We're recording this on Tuesday, so we'll have to wait and see how the teams are named. But I think we're going to have Trinity Tauiniai playing for the Dragons. Younger sister of Alexis, equally as awesome, from Wainuiamata, I think. Pretty confident. So she's awesome there. Bulldogs, how many wahine from Aotearoa can the Bulldogs fit into their team is the thing I'm watching there. The Broncos have a lot of players as well. Kerry Johnson from Northland. And Maka is from Bay of Plenty, I think. But there's a chance that both of them join Melehofunga, Gail Broughton, Tafito Lafa'ale, Aneta No'osala, and Brianna Clark. Lavinia Gould, the veteran as well. Raiders, how many wahine from Aotearoa can they fit into their team? And then, of course, the Warriors. Now, the thing I'm looking for in the team list for the Warriors is, where does Michaela Brake play? I kind of had her in the halves category, but her profile on the Warriors website is she's listed as a winger. Now, if we compare Warriors women to the men, if you've got Michaela Brake on the wing, lightning fast. That's what you want. That is the speed on the flanks that the Warriors don't have. So, and then you can also, because Patricia Maliepo was listed as a half. So then she might be the number 6 with Emily Curtin, the number 7, which is a good halves combination because Maliepo, a very dynamic runner, but she's got a good kicking game that she showed in Super Rugby and for the Black Ferns as well. So I've got my team, my Warriors team, Warriors Wahine team that I think might happen. Now, obviously, who knows? But we got Api Nichols at fullback, Michaela Brake, Lavinia Tauhala-Liku on the wing, who I think Tauhala-Liku and Patricia Maliepo, they're both from Southern Cross campus with Mele Hofonga, Leka Halasima, Elijah Salisali Moana. Centers, Emanita Paki, Taisha Ikanasio. Middle forwards, I'm going Maya Hill, Moana, Harata Butler, Lyshon Albert Jones. Edges, Matakino Gray, Shakira Baker. Hooker, Capri Paikau. Bench, Lydia Turoa Kwedle, Falila Kia, Lavinia Kitai, and Marere Pukitapu. Things get a bit iffy on the bench. Don't think I'll get much right there. But Shakira Baker, does she play edge forward? Does she play center? Lyshon Albert Jones and Matakino Gray, are they edge forwards? Are they middle forwards? Ikanasio, I think she'll be in the outside back somewhere, so I've gone with her at center. And then, of course, we got the break, Maliepo on the halves and that kind of stuff. I've gone with Turoa Kwedle on the bench. She can cover hooker, but she can also cover in the halves. Bit of a Tomato Martin selection there. I've got Capri Paikau as my starting hooker. There's a chance Avery Rose Carmont is selected on the bench as well because she's a specialist hooker. So the two specialist hookers are Paikau and Carmont. Lots of exciting stuff happening there. So stay tuned because the NRLW season is underway starting this weekend. I did for some reason think like the men would be playing at home and the Warriors and the women would be playing at home this weekend. So I started off my first 24 hours after that loss thinking, oh, this is going to be a crazy weekend for the Warriors because it's going to be a big crowd, and we know how the men play in front of big crowds, and we've got the women starting their season. It's going to be a massive, the men bouncing back from 2 losses, but all of that didn't matter because the men have the bye. The women are playing against the Eels, I believe, in Australia. Let me double check. No, the women are playing on Sunday, 1:50 p.m. against the Roosters. So that will be a nice little spot for them to begin their season because I think they can surprise folks. I think it's going to be a very good season. Just a little hunch I've got about the Warriors Wahine. Do we have a salute? Did you find an answer to the old Dalian voting?
Yeah, that was a while ago. I did actually. I forgot to bring that back up. They have 2 independent judges for each game, but they stay anonymous, I guess, so that no one tries to influence them or anything like that. So we don't actually know, but I have seen it said. I'm not sure how old some of these reports are because they change it a little bit every now and then. They only added the 2nd judge a couple of years ago, but I think they're all ex-players. So it's not strictly that it's the media that does the voting, but I would suggest that because I think the independent factor just means like Stacey Jones isn't going to be asked to pick the players in the Warriors game. There's players that like ex-players that don't have affiliations with those clubs or anything like that. But yeah, I don't think it's strictly that it's the media who votes on it, but I think it's probably likely that there's a lot of crossover between the types of people who are going to games and watching all of these games and in a position to be able to like pick your 3 best players from each matchup. But yeah, and that them also, I think there's a lot of crossover. Basically, but we can't say for sure because they keep them anonymous, so we don't know 100%. To be fair, we see this in American sports a lot, where like the players will kick up a fuss about the media voting on things. Like, how come the media is deciding all stars or whatever? The alternatives are often like coaches or players or fans, and that's usually worse. Like the fan voting is always just a shambles. Player voting, we've seen that in the NBA. They just vote for their friends and their teammates. And coaches think that their team is the only, like, if you ever hear a coach talk, it's usually like, the only reason our team lost is because we played bad. The other team is rubbish. So there's not really a good solution for those things. But I think most people probably, if you think about it for a sec, can understand that the Dally M isn't necessarily picking the actual best player, because how can you possibly know who the actual best player is when there's a bunch of different positions and people are doing different tasks? But it is a narrative award, and it's probably okay if it gets swept up in the narrative a little bit, because that's kind of the reason it exists.
But what we were talking a lot about Luke Metcalf before these two losses was Metcalf moments. So if he's having the moments, then that's a high way to getting Dally M votes if you're having the moments. What I will say, because I was wrong about the media vote and maybe just some Aussie media figures who just love halfbacks.
Well, like I say, I think there's probably some crossover with that, though. We just don't know.
But who cares? I don't care about the Dally M's. The thing is, the Warriors, their success depended on so many different players. And those different players working together. So that's where I get a bit iffy on just like putting... remind me of a song. There's a Divine Council song that's a bit vulgar for the podcast. So he goes, I hold a B word up like Simba. Hold a titch up like Simba. I was like, that's what I thought of when I was hold Metcalf up like Simba, that type of thing. But there's just so many other pieces, and it's like the Metcalf moments is why it's easy to look at Metcalf. But there's a lot happening there for the Warriors, and I think what we're going to see is that it's the organization, it's the everyone there helps the Warriors get a win, and they're not dependent on any individual to get those wins. Because again, I'm going to repeat this because this is crazy to say. I think the Warriors can be a top 4 team without Mitchell Barnett or Luke Metcalf. Wait and see about Shans Nickel Clockstar. I will add this little sneaky nugget for the keen listener. The 9 under-21s who played New South Wales Cup last weekend, defeating the Seagulls: C.O. Kelly, Luke Hanson, Jet Cleary, Rodney Tuipolotuvea, Kalis Fatialofe, Eddie Iramia Toiava, Jason Salalilo, Harry Durbin, Makaya Tafua. The big addition there is Rodney Tuipolotu, who started at prop, Mangere Jr. But just because he started at prop doesn't mean he's better than Jason Salalilo from Christchurch. That dude, I'd say, aside from C.O. Kelly, who has he just has highlights. He is a walking highlight reel. The one dude who's impressed me the most this season is Jason Salalilo. Very mobile, powerful, hard-working middle forward who is going to add to the NRL team. Maybe like a bit of Bevan Jacobs, within the next year. And Bevan Jacobs, he is in the Blackcaps T20 squad. And this is a T20 squad for the Tri-Series to play against South Africa and Zimbabwe. What was your reaction looking at that squad?
I can't remember what I thought looking at it. It was sort of like I don't know. It feels like the type of squad that I would have expected for a tour like this. One of the things that I was trying to keep a close eye on with the squad is not necessarily the players, but also the coaches, because it is the start of Rob Walter's tenure, isn't it? I'm pretty sure that's right. It's his first one as head coach. Where I was like, well, is he bringing in his own staff or whatever? And then I noticed Luke Ronke, batting coach, Jacob Warren, bowling coach. So very much continuity there from what he's inherited going back. So that probably adds up to what we saw in the squad, where the players selected is about what we normally see for a mid-year sort of, it's, let's say, off-season, but it's not off-season. Well, actually, it sort of is, because Zimbabwe, South Africa is Southern Hemisphere, so they're not exactly playing in the heat of summer, but it's for a mid-year Blackcaps away tour, it's the normal balance of key players who aren't available, young players getting a little bit of opportunity, fringe players asked to be a bit more of like you're a leader in this team kind of thing. And the right balance of Devon Conway being dropped as well.
Wait, so who are the key players unavailable that you think could be in this
Mostly,
squad?
I'm just thinking of Kane Williamson because he's the only one who was on the list as saying like they specifically said Kane Williamson made himself unavailable for this tour. Like,
Yeah, but like that's we expect it. Like so to your point
that's
about
what I'm
coaching,
saying. It's expected sort of.
yeah, but you made it seem like this time of year they're going to send a second string squad. This is not a second string T20 squad. This is
No,
to
yeah,
me,
yeah. I don't mean to imply that it's weaker, just that, yeah.
The only Lockie Ferguson workload management, that is a bit tough for him because I can see a situation where he doesn't actually. Well, him and Adam Milne are just never healthy. So it's like whichever one of you is fit and available can play. So like Lockie Ferguson seemed fit and healthy and available, but he's getting the old he's in the management zone. I did have a chuckle, like Kyle Jamieson, who he's not in the squad because he's waiting the birth of a child, which was fine. But this is the thing about the Blackcaps. If you're not in the squad, someone else is going to have a crack. And you might not get your way back in the squad. So whatever your situation is, it's up to you. Because there's a lot of dudes in the squad who won't be giving up their position. But I did have a chuckle. There was a story on the one of the glorious institutions of Aotearoa sport about Kyle Jamieson and his like recovery from back injury and like his new training regime. And there were zero details about his training. There was no actual information about like what's he doing, how's he recovering, anything that could actually help other people or provide insight about what Kyle Jamieson's recovery looks like. It was just saying a lot of fluff. So the only dude I think who's like a certified top tier T20 player, top 15 if we're doing squad, is Lockie Ferguson. But then again, Adam Milne is an awesome T20 bowler. And one of the things...
Ben Sears is out injured, eh?
Yes, so yeah, Ben Sears is out injured. He's another... This is the thing. This is the Blackcaps. No Jamieson, no Lockie Ferguson, no Nathan Smith, no Ben Sears. That's just the seam bowling department. No Kane Williamson, no Devon Conway, no Tim Robinson, no Dean Foxcroft, like all those kind of characters. No Muhammad Abbas, Nick Kelly. There's a lot of depth here. No Nathan Smith because Zach Fox is the better option in T20s right now. I think when we get a test squad, you'll see Nathan Smith in the test squad and no Zach Fox because they are in similar roles. A summary thought for me about the squad was the weak spots, if you look at like stats and T20 performances, the weak spots in the squad are Glenn Phillips, Rachin Ravindra, and Will O'Rourke. Those are the weak spots. Three of the best younger cricketers in Aotearoa. Rachin Ravindra hasn't really dominated T20 cricket for the Blackcaps, yet. He will, but he hasn't quite done it yet. Glenn Phillips, he averaged 10 in T20s last summer. Will O'Rourke, he's learning how to play T20 cricket. He's been to the IPL, he's been through the T20 blast, hasn't played a lot of T20 cricket for New Zealand, and like Ravindra, I haven't seen him like really dominate and stamp his authority on Blackcaps T20 cricket. Because I've seen Jacob Duffy do it, I've seen Matt Henry do it. And for Rachin Ravindra, I've seen Finn Allen do it. I've seen Tim Seifert do it. This is Blackcaps cricket. The weakest players in this T20 squad are three of the best New Zealand cricketers right now, full stop.
Yeah, actually talking through that and the players who aren't there actually seems like pretty much everyone is like a reason not to be there. It's not a except for Conway. Conway's the one guy who's been And that's dropped. That's based on form. That's not based on rested. So I think I think he has gone with as close to the best team he could pick. It's a bloody good team. I like seeing East Sodi back in there too, because he was one of those ones. Didn't he just lose his contract and lesson number 3,475 about contracts not being indicative of Blackcaps selection?
This is important. The best way for a New Zealand cricketer to get paid is still to have a contract with New Zealand cricket. We know Blackcaps contracts don't matter because there's players with contracts who will not play for the Blackcaps moving forward, and there's players without contracts, basically 5 or 6 who are in this squad. But also, when we get through, we'll talk about domestic cricket soon. There are players, Doug Bracewell, Scott Kugelheim, who they rejected or opted out of domestic cricket contracts last year for T20 opportunities. What have they done? They've returned to domestic cricket contracts. Tim Seifert has T20 gigs coming out the wazoo, but he's still got a casual contract with Northern Districts. Logan Van Beek has a full-time county championship job. He's an international cricketer for the Netherlands. Could probably play a lot of T20 cricket around the world, probably does play a lot of T20 cricket, and he's still contracted for Wellington. These contracts do nothing at all for the fans. They don't inform us about anything. They don't help us with any rankings, assessing squads, or anything. In the world of T20 cricket has taken over the world. The money of the riches of T20 cricket. The best way for a New Zealand cricketer to get paid right now is still a New Zealand cricket contract. It's still a Blackcaps contract. It's still a domestic cricket contract.
And the last thing I would ask about the squad is case of Finn Allen being in there. Big highlights the other day in Major League Cricket. I'm assuming he's not been selected on the back of Major League Cricket form. Is that what we're doing here, or is this just more of a next man up because Conway's got to be shifted?
No, Finn Allen's better than Conway. He is a better T20 slugger than Devon Conway.
Right. Well, that's good to hear that reiterated, because it's yeah, I don't know. Conway probably had to be shuffled up just a little bit. I'll say there's a question mark in my head about why we're going back to Finn Allen. But I guess he has a skill set that they liked in the first place, and maybe a couple more years of, he's been out a little bit. He's gone around the various leagues, and he's focused very strictly on T20 cricket in that time, and has probably skilled up. It's a good idea to check in on those guys every now and then and see, is that maybe this is the time. But that was one that struck me a little bit in the squad. It's is Finn Allen just back in the thing now? We sort of tried that once already. But as I say, it's not that time as a healer. I'm not sure what the better phrase of that is. Time is he's had time to skill up. I don't know. It's you told me to pull me up. You said state your case. We're working on the thing.
You're pretending Finn Allen hasn't existed for the last 6 period of time.
How long was?
So he played.
I don't know.
This is a T20 bubble. Finn Allen is really good at T20 cricket. If we're weaving in some contract chat here, the reason Finn Allen doesn't have a Blackcaps contract is because he's really good at T20 cricket. So there's very few New Zealand cricketers who can make their desired income playing T20 cricket. Now, again, we are told T20 cricket controls the world, the riches of T20 cricket. We've got maybe 2 or 3 cricketers who are maybe 4 or 5, to be honest. But there's less cricketers who rely on T20 money than there are those who don't. Finn Allen is a T20 cricketer. He's not going to play any more ODIs. He will never play a test for New Zealand unless Brendan McCullum becomes the coach. He is a T20 cricketer. If we're selecting our best T20 team, he is in that team to play T20 cricket. Same reason Ish Sodhi's in the squad. If we're selecting our best T20 team of players who actually want to play for New Zealand, so Trent Boult doesn't want to play for New Zealand, not in the mix. Kane Williamson doesn't want to play for New Zealand, not in the mix. Okay, so we narrow it down. If we're selecting our best T20 team, Ish Sodhi, Mitchell Santner, and Michael Bracewell are in that team as spinners. Yes, Ashok can be a future spinner, but we're trying to win T20s right now. If we're trying to win T20s right now, Finn Allen is in that team, and for me, he's opening the batting every day of the week. Why? He smashes boundaries. We can go. Start of 2024. Finn Allen, 17 games. Who played more T20 since the start of 2024 than Finn Allen? Mark Chapman, 24. Ish Sodhi, 19. Right, so that's why I chuckled when you were talking about Finn Allen, because you were under the assumption that Finn Allen has disappeared.
Yeah, like that's true, because in my head it felt like he'd been away for like 2+ years, but apparently he's played 17 games since 2024. So yeah, okay, they cloud that up a little bit.
So in that time, Finn Allen, leading run scorer, 500 runs, only batter over 400 runs, averaging 31.5, strike rate of 178. That is, it looks to me like that's the highest strike rate of everyone. All 30 cricketers who have played T20 cricket for New Zealand. Little old New Zealand somehow has 30 cricketers who can play for this glorious nation. So he's the leading run scorer with the highest strike rate since the start of 2024. If we go, so yeah, fair play. He wasn't as available last summer, but he still played 5 games, averaging 36, strike rate of 212. That looks to me like the highest strike rate for all Blackcaps in that period of last summer. So Finn Allen has been pretty solid. Let's just say that. He's been pretty solid at the top of the order for the Blackcaps. If we compare Finn Allen to Devon Conway, their careers, Finn Allen averaging 25 with a strike rate of 163 for New Zealand. Devon Conway averaging 38 with a strike rate of 127. Now, all the stats gurus tell you averages don't matter in T20 cricket. Devon Conway averages 38 and 40. And 40 in T20s with a strike rate of 128. Really good averages, but averages aren't as important in T20 cricket. Specifically in this role of opening the batting. Finn Allen's T20 strike rate, 174 in his career, averaging 29, which is actually pretty decent. I think a lot of people, they just go to Devon Conway's Crick Info page and they just see he's averaging over 40. Well, he's actually got a test average below 40 now, 36, which is, that used to be 60 odd. If you do
200 after his first game.
If you do your accumulative average thingy that you love to do, you'll see that Devon Conway's average is falling off a cliff. But there, what am I saying? Finn Allen, strike rate's over 160. Devon Conway's strike rate's below 130. Okay. We go to since the start of 2024. As I said, Finn Allen averaging 31.5, strike rate of 178. Devon Conway is averaging 22.8 with a strike rate of 118. Finn Allen's averaging over 30 with a strike rate of 178. Repeat it again. Devon Conway's averaging 23, I'll be generous, 23 with a strike rate of 118. There is no comparison there. The players with the lowest strike rates of the notable batters, shout out Mitchell Santner, Devon Conway and Kane Williamson. That's why I don't have them in the mix. And the thing is, Fennell and Tim Seifert, they're going to be hyper aggressive. Then you have Chapman, Mitchell, Ravindra, Phillips. 4 batters who can up the ante, who are just really good batters, full stop. So all of that is why Fennellen's in the squad. That's why Tim Seifert's the wicketkeeper, the main wicketkeeper, because he's probably going to open the batting. Then you've got the wicketkeeper opening the batting. Mitch Hay, I'm a big fan of Mitch Hay, but I'd rather have Tim Seifert opening the batting as a wicketkeeper, smashing boundaries, then you can get in your other hitters and your all-rounders down the order. Tim Seifert, since the start of 2024, averaging 35 with a strike rate of 162, sorry. So when we're talking Conway, Williamson strike rates, Williamson, Big Donny, strike rate of 125, Conway, 118. Compare that to Fennellen, 178, Mark Chapman, 142, Seifert, 162, Mitchell, 153. All of this is since the start of 2024. Conway and Williamson, they've got good averages, except for Conway's average of 23 since the start of 2024. This is Blackcaps now, though, where we've got the depth where it's not just about like, oh, our best batters need to play T20 cricket. Our best bowlers need to play T20 cricket. No, to get into this Blackcaps T20 team, you need to be smashing boundaries. How did Bevan Jacobs get into the Blackcaps T20 squad? Well, he certainly didn't get there because of his IPL stuff, because he didn't play IPL. But he has a T20 strike rate of 148 in his career. That's why he's there. I'm kind of talking my way through this, and the Blackcaps have fine-tuned their T20 setup specifically to the point where baseline strike rates right now are 140. Like, there's not room to carry Kane Williamson's strike rate of 120, 130. And again, the crazy thing is, the worst players in this T20 squad are Glenn Phillips, Rachin Ravindra, and Will O'Rourke, which is absolutely bonkers. But I think you want to do your little Devon Conway accumulative average.
Yeah. Yeah, let's play that game. So after one test match, I could do this for the other things, the other formats as well, but after one test match, Devon Conway's average was 111.5. After 5, 69.22. After 10 matches, 51. 15, 49.07. After 20, 41.58. That's a big drop. After 25, 39.45. After 27, 36.72. So I just picked a random little integers of 5 there, and he literally went down every single time from those, one to the next. Let's have a look at ODIs and see if that looks the same for him.
I think it's different. ODIs are a little bit different.
ODIs, he hasn't played enough. He's kept it fairly steady there, looking at that. So let's not look at ODIs and disprove the theory.
But I will add, Devon Conway was not part of the first 11 at the Champions Trophy. So the test series against England, he stepped into one of those like disguise camouflage holes and just fell out the bottom. But he had a child, remember. So he wasn't dropped for the third test. So he saved himself from being dropped. He was effectively dropped from the ODI team. And guess what? They made the Champions Trophy final.
And looking at the T20 stuff, right, we'll keep the I'll add the strike rates as well. In fact, the strike rate almost might be more telling. It looks like they both follow the same thing, but 5 games, 55.5 average, strike rate 158. After 10 games, 55 average still. Strike rate dipped a little bit though to 147.32. 15, it's still 55, it's 148. Nice and steady. 20, 50 average, 139 strike rate. 25, 50 average, 136 strike rate. Where are we? 30, 54, 135, blah, blah, blah. This is where we start to hit the old, where are we? This is into around 2022 at this stage. 35 games, the average has dropped to 48.75. The strike rate has dropped to 130. 40 games, 42.72 average, 129 strike rate. 45 games, 39.35 average and 129 strike rate still. And then after 50 games, it's sitting at 38 and 127. So the averages come down, not massively, because 38 average in T20s is amazing. But as you say, the average doesn't tell the full story in T20s. We only get 120 balls to score as many runs as you can. The strike rate is very telling as well. And the strike rate has dipped pretty much equally with his average. So, yeah, that's probably why he didn't get picked for this series.
Good stuff. Excited for the tri-series. Now, we've also had the domestic cricket contracts, and I don't want to go too deep into the contracts because I know there will be players who don't have contracts who are going to play a lot of cricket this summer. So the contracts are useful to me. They introduce some new players who got a contract, but even that's a bit iffy. Perfect example. Northern Districts gave Xavier Bell a contract, prodigious batting talent. This time last year, they gave Snehith Reddy a contract as a 17-year-old, I think. Reddy doesn't have a contract this summer. Like it's not like he's stopped being good at cricket, but he doesn't have a contract, and they've given Xavier Bell a contract. There's so many players outside the contract pool who will play a lot of domestic cricket, but it's useful in introducing some characters. Some of those characters are Xavier Bell, Wellington, Sam Morgan, and Paranjabi Seema. Now, this useful, I think his first name, Amor Paranjabi. And he's pretty good seamer by the looks of it. But the main thing about domestic cricket contract, and shout out to, again, Mason Clark debuted for Otago last season as a 17-year-old without a contract. But so the useful thing for me is the movement. This is our first major checkpoint that tells us about player movement between the regions. We already knew Dean Foxcroft was returning to CD because he was part of their global Super League competition. But the contracts came out and we had Dale Phillips has gone to Auckland. So Otago lost Dean Foxcroft, Dale Phillips, and Leo Carter. Leo Carter lasted as long with Otago as their coach. Ash Nothke, 1 season. Leo Carter, 1 season with Otago. He's gone back to Canterbury. Otago bring in Dunru Ferns, very good all-format seamer for Auckland. Troy Johnson and Jack Boyle. Troy Johnson from Wellington, Jack Boyle from CD. Funky thing about Jack Boyle and Troy Johnson is that they weren't necessarily certified all-format first 11 for the Wellington and CD last summer. So they have opportunities to become all-format first 11 players for Otago. And if you look, Foxcroft and Phillips moved to Otago as younger players. There's a bit of a change there with Otago because the players who moved to Otago are all, I think Johnson's the youngest at 27 years old. Boyle's late 20s, Dunru Ferns is early 30s. And they also, the Otago Cricket said in their announcement, made specific mention of Boyle and Johnson's links to the Otago region. So Otago have usually brought down youngsters. You got the Otago University connection as well. They bring in youngsters who weren't getting opportunities at other associations. But you've seen Foxcroft and Phillips leave. Now they're bringing in some older players, two of which have connections to Otago. No movement for Northern Districts. No movement for Wellington, I don't believe either. Leo Carter comes back for Canterbury. So there was a bit of movement, but nothing too crazy. But I do have some, just these, this is just like a brainstorm of stuff that some zones that I find interesting. Auckland. You're going to have Dale Phillips, Bevan Jacobs, and Jock McKenzie in the middle order, I think. Or just in the batting department. Jock McKenzie, fantastic all-rounder, but a very underrated batter. So at least you're going to have Dale Phillips and Bevan Jacobs, two funky, powerful hitters for Auckland. But I'm going to add Jock McKenzie there. And then you can, if you add an Ashok, then you've got a fantastic young core. Northern Districts also have a fantastic young core as well, because you've got Christian Clark, Matt Fisher, Ben Pomare, Zach Gibson, and Tim Pringle didn't have contracts last summer, I think due to injury. Now they're back in the contract pool. Let me check my notes. Yeah, and then you've still got guys like Riki floating around. But that group of Christian Clark, Matt Fisher, Ben Pomare, Tim Pringle, Zach Gibson, very talented young group. Central Districts, the player I'm most looking forward to in the GSL thing is Will Clark. A lot of people don't know about Will Clark, but he's a fantastic all-rounder for CD. Same thing for Wellington without the GSL, Jesse Tashkoff. He had a fantastic end to the season last summer, and I'm also interested in the seam department at Wellington because Paranjbi is a seamer, and Shane Jurgensen, former Blackcaps bowling coach, now head coach of Wellington. You've got Azhar Abbas, who in theory is still their bowling coach. He brought down Yaya Zeb from Auckland for last season. They worked together at Eden Ross School in the Auckland club scene. And then you've got guys like Nathan Smith and Ben Sears who keep getting better under that coaching staff. And from what I've read and seen, Paranjbi, he is someone to watch out for, I think, in that seam department at Wellington. Canterbury can't go past Cameron Paul. Now, they promoted Scott Janet, opening batter, and Jesse Frew, wicketkeeper. But from I believe Cameron Paul's from Darfield. I'm going to have to do a quick search about that. And we know my record on Darfield cricketers. Bang on about Zachary Folks. And from what I've seen, like Cameron Paul has already played a fair amount of domestic cricket. He seems very talented as well. Yes, Cameron Paul, Darfield representative. And then Otago, it just all revolves around Luke Georgeson and Max Chu for me. And I look forward to them. So it's just some random notes for each association. Shout out to New Zealand A women. 3 losses in their series against England A. 2 close losses, then a big loss. So that we'll keep going through the T20 series this week, and we'll see how that goes. Best player for New Zealand A, Bree Illing. And I am fairly confident in my assessment that Bree Illing is going to be a very useful an important bowler for the White Ferns moving forward. Bree Illing will play more cricket than many assume for the White Ferns. She's going to be very good for the White Ferns and leading wicket taker for both teams in this series, having debuted for the White Ferns last summer. Bree Illing, and like you've got a bunch of like interesting batting people: Bella James, Jess Watkin, Polly Ingalls, Izzy Gaze scored runs, Georgia Plymouth scored runs, but Bree Illing is the best. I think she's the best young cricketer in New Zealand right now for the women. And let's go football. I saw Ben Waine has a new opportunity.
That he does. He's going to be playing for Port Vale over the next couple seasons, which is keeping them in England. They were a League 2 team, but they just got promoted. So they're playing League 1 this season, which feels like about the right level for them. That's the level that Plymouth Argyle were at when he first joined them. Then they got promoted. And then, you know, maybe in a weird way, even though that was clearly good for the club, maybe that wasn't the best thing for Waine to accelerate him so quickly there. And it was just harder to get minutes, anything other than little spots off the bench. The thing about Wayne's time in England is that if you actually look up like the goals per minute, he's got a pretty decent record. Like it's certainly on par with what he was doing with the Wellington Phoenix. The problem is that he was starting games for the Phoenix, so that adds up to a lot more goals. Whereas when he's been playing in England so far with Plymouth and Mansfield, mostly we've been talking about little spots off the bench, and it's pretty hard to come in there and make a big impact when you're only playing 5 minutes, right? So I think with him, it's been a lot more about lack of opportunity than it has about lack of production. Even though it feels like a lack of production because he's had a lack of opportunity. But yeah, Port Vale seems like a nice move. I don't think there was any possibility. In fact, I'm pretty sure Sean Gill said this already. Like they reached out to him to see if he might want to come back to the Phoenix, and if the Phoenix were interested, and obviously Auckland FC would have been interested, and other A-League teams and someone like that. But I don't think that was ever a possibility. It always seemed most likely he would stay in Europe and most likely stay in England. He's got like a lot of English heritage, and he was very excited to go over to England in the first place. So I think he's fairly well set up there. And Port Vale hopefully will be the type of team. Well, you know, we'll see what it's like because Declan Wynne signed there a couple of years ago and they never played him once. So it didn't work out for him. But Ben Waine is better than Declan Wynne. So hopefully this is the spot where he actually gets more room to show what he can do. And if he does, I expect him to score a few goals. So I think a season in League One with a team that's trying to establish themselves at that level, having just been promoted, feels like a pretty good level for him to be at right now. With, you know, a year out from a World Cup where he probably does need to score a few goals and play a few games in order to make sure he makes that final selection.
What else is leading your Flying Kiwis transfer farmers market?
Well, it's about as relevant as Dally M voting, but it's still, I guess, you know, Dally M is a narrative award, MLS All-Stars is a narrative award, but Michael Boxall has a great narrative. He's hit a, you know, he's 37 years old. He's just been selected to an All-Star game for his outstanding performances with Minnesota. He might even be in career best form at 37 years of age. He's been fantastic for them. And that has been deservedly recognized. And if, you know, it would have been nice to see Finn Sermon also get in there, but they pick 4 centre backs from across 30 teams. And no one really knows who Finn Sermon is yet in America. So I don't think he's really had the time to build up the reputation in order to get that kind of recognition, but that'll come in the future if he stays there long enough. But certainly it was a beautiful thing to see Michael Boxall, you know, selected for the All-Star game. I guess he has to go and play the All-Star game now, which he'd probably rather not, but it is nice to see the recognition in whatever way it happens to come. In this case, it's All-Star selection for someone like that who has had a great career, who has been in good form. And it was like, you know, they little presentation for him at training. A bunch of school kids came out with like handmade signs and stuff. And then his family came and presented him with a jersey that said All-Star on the back. And I noticed Boxy, being the champion that he is, he went and shook the hands of every single one of this like whole classroom. Well, it's not a classroom, they're on this football field, but a classroom's full of his classroom size selection of kids. Went and shook everyone's hands, said thank you to all. Like this this is the guy who just got selected for All Stars here. Like, it's a nice little indication of what a good humble bloke he is. And then yeah, he'll get to play. He's already beaten Lionel Messi head to head once. Now he'll get to play alongside him in that All-Star game. As far as I can tell, the only other New Zealander ever to be selected, or certainly the only one to play in an All-Star game, was Ryan Nelson once upon a time. So that's some decent Kiwi footballing lineage there in America that Michael Boxall is adding to.
He's in a Steven Adams zone with just like how Kiwi he is in an American competition, right?
Yeah, I think he really is. He's just both of them still have the accent without any hints of anything else, which isn't necessary, but it's nice. But just the sort of in Boxy's case, he's quieter. He's a lot more like reserved, except occasionally when he has to, not so much speaking to the rest, but certainly speaking to opponents who cross the line. I think that's where he steps out of his shell a little bit more. But he's very much just like Steven Adams, a leader by example, a guy who is just like a full professional, like doesn't cut any corners, keeps exactly what the lifestyle needs to be in order to maximize performance and all this. He's been a great player for a long time for New Zealand, and like I mean, he was the guy who scored that goal to set them up, the first goal in the final of World Cup qualification. So he got a fair bit of recognition off the back of that. That was his first international goal, and now he's carried that on, and his form before and after. He's got a bit of a secret weapon. It's not new. Send this, I think, even going back to the Wellington Phoenix days for him once upon a time, but big resurgence in his long throw stuff this season. They've scored like 3 or 4 goals off the back of Michael Boxall, centre back, rushing up onto the sideline, hurling a long throw into the box, and then there's someone flicking it on, and then someone else hunting in the middle. Definitely the kind of thing that I'd like to see the All Whites paying close attention to, and I suspect that Darren Baisley is paying very close attention to that kind of thing, because you're talking about trying to find ways to get like Francis de Vries in there late in games to whip in those crosses. Well, Boxy with the long throws is not a bad idea either. So, so, as I say, nice recognition for him lately. He's been getting quite a bit of it, and he deserves all of that and more.
Anything else you want to throw at us?
Well, it is the 1st of July, which is an important moment in the football seasons, because that is when one season becomes the next season, because contracts for last year expires at midnight on the 30th of June. 1st of July is when everyone becomes free agents. I think that must be the same in the NBA, because Shams has been going nuts today with a bunch of stuff. So I guess that must be NBA free agency has started. And football free agency has started. So Ben Waine was very quick off the bat to get his new contract announced, his new club. Should be a fair few more where this came from in terms of the transfer stuff. So I expect a busy week over that in that regard. We should have a couple. There's quite a few like sort of unresolved situations, so we should get a fair bit of clarity moving forward now.
Beauty. That is our podcast for this great Tuesday. I need to go mow the lawns, and you need to go look after yourself. So make sure you're doing your best. Have a crack. Be kind to one another. And big up yourself. Love yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Church.